Simone stood at the window of the house that had been her prison for 8 years, watching the moving truck roll up the driveway. Behind it came the silver Mercedes she used to think was hers until the divorce lawyer explained that nothing, absolutely nothing, had ever been in her name. Brandon stepped out of his black BMW, straightened his expensive suit, and smiled that smile she used to find charming. Now it just looked cruel. He wasn't alone. Tiffany emerged from the passenger seat, her blonde hair catching the afternoon light, wearing designer clothes that Simone recognized as coming from their joint credit card. The one that turned out to be his card all along. Behind them, 2 more cars pulled up. A lawyer and the movers Brandon had hired to strip the house of every single thing he had ever purchased during their marriage. Simone's phone buzzed. A text from Brandon: "I'm here to collect what's mine. I hope you've packed your personal items. Everything else stays with the truck." She set the phone down and watched him swagger toward the front door. Her hands should have been shaking. Her heart should have been racing. She should have been terrified, angry, or at least sad. Instead, a small smile played at the corners of her lips. The doorbell rang. Simone took one last look around the house. The leather couch Brandon had chosen, the dining table where she ate alone most nights, the abstract art on the walls that she never liked but he insisted was an investment. She felt nothing. She walked to the door and opened it. "Simone," Brandon said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "I know this is hard, but we had an agreement." "We did," she replied calmly. "Come in." His eyes narrowed, confused by her composure. He had expected tears. Maybe begging. Definitely anger. Tiffany shifted uncomfortably behind him, her confident smile faltering. "Is this some kind of game?" Brandon asked, stepping inside. "You know I'm taking everything, right? The house is mine. The car is mine. The furniture, the appliances, even the TV. All mine. You signed the papers." "I did sign the papers," Simone agreed. "I signed every single one. Your lawyer made it very clear what belonged to you. So you understand you're leaving here with nothing?" He crossed his arms, clearly warming up to what he thought would be a satisfying confrontation. "I understand perfectly." Simone picked up her purse and a small box of photo albums, the only thing she had taken from her childhood home. "The movers can take everything. I don't need any of it." Brandon's face twisted in confusion. "You don't need..." "Simone, are you okay? Did you hit your head or something?" "I'm perfectly fine, Brandon. Better than I've been in years, actually." Tiffany whispered something to him, but he waved her off. "Where are you going to live? How are you going to survive? You haven't worked a real job in years. You have no skills, no money, nothing." "I'll manage," Simone said simply. The lawyer entered, carrying a clipboard full of papers. "Miss Simone? I need you to verify the inventory list and sign off on each item being removed from the property." For the next 2 hours, Simone calmly walked through the house with the lawyer, checking off items. Brandon followed, making snide comments about how she was probably already trying to figure out which friend would take her in. Tiffany examined the furniture like she was shopping, occasionally saying things like, "Oh, this couch will look perfect in our living room," or, "I always hated those curtains anyway." When they reached the master bedroom, Simone paused only briefly. This was where she had found them 6 months ago, tangled in sheets she had washed that morning. Brandon's clothes mixed with Tiffany's on the floor. The sound of their laughter until they saw her standing in the doorway. "Nothing to say?" Brandon taunted. "No final speech about how I ruined your life?" Simone turned to look at him fully for the first time since he arrived. "You didn't ruin my life, Brandon. You just weren't part of it." His face reddened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what I said." She signed the final paper and handed the clipboard back to the lawyer. "We're done here. Where's your car?" Brandon asked suddenly. "The Range Rover should be in the garage. I returned it to the dealership last month. It was in your name anyway, remember? I didn't want to deal with the hassle." "Returned it?" He looked genuinely shocked. "How have you been getting around?" "I bought my own car. A nice one." Simone picked up her box of photos. "Is there anything else, or can I go now?" Brandon stepped in front of her. "Wait. Just wait. You're acting weird, Simone. This isn't like you. You should be crying or screaming or something. I'm taking everything." "I know. And I'm letting you take it." She met his eyes steadily. "Thank you for that, actually." "Thank me?" He looked at Tiffany, who shrugged. "Yes. Thank you for showing me who you really are. Thank you for the divorce. Thank you for making it so clear that I never want to see you again." Simone stepped around him. "Goodbye, Brandon." She walked out of the house without looking back. Behind her, she heard Brandon sputtering to Tiffany, trying to make sense of what just happened. The movers had already loaded half the furniture into the truck. Neighbors stood on their lawns watching the spectacle. A few waved at Simone sympathetically, probably thinking she was being thrown out with nothing. Simone smiled at them and waved back. Her car, a brand new Mercedes midnight blue, bought and paid for with her own money, waited at the curb. She had parked it there deliberately in full view. As she unlocked it with the key fob, she heard Brandon's voice behind her. Simone. Wait. Where did you get that car? She turned, still smiling. I bought it. Have a good life, Brandon. She drove away, leaving him standing in the driveway of the empty house, his face pale with confusion. In her rearview mirror, she saw him pull out his phone, probably to call someone who could explain what just happened. Let him wonder, she thought. Let him spend the next few weeks trying to figure out where she got the money for a luxury car. Let him lose sleep over how calm she had been. Let him realize, slowly and painfully, that taking away his things meant absolutely nothing to her. Because while Brandon had spent the last 6 months celebrating his freedom and planning his future with Tiffany, Simone had been building an empire. And he had no idea. 8 years earlier, Simone had been a different person. She was 23, fresh out of college with a degree in graphic design, and working at a small marketing firm in downtown Seattle. She loved her job, loved the creative energy, loved seeing her designs on billboards and in magazines. She was good at it too. Her boss had just promoted her to senior designer when she met Brandon at a tech industry mixer. He was 27, handsome in an understated way, and passionate about the software startup he was launching with 2 college friends. He talked about changing the world, about making technology accessible, about building something that mattered. Simone found his ambition attractive. She had ambition too, and she thought they could build their futures together. Their first year together was magical. Brandon was attentive, romantic, and supportive. He came to her design exhibitions and bragged about her talent to his friends. When his startup began to take off, landing its first major investor, he proposed. Simone said yes without hesitation. The wedding was small and perfect. They honeymooned in Italy. When they returned, Brandon suggested she quit her job to help him full-time with the company. Just until we're stable, he said. I need someone I can trust handling the branding and marketing. You're perfect for it. Simone hesitated. She loved her job and had just been offered art director. But Brandon painted such a beautiful picture of them as partners, building something together, that she agreed. She gave her notice and threw herself into his company. For the first 6 months it felt right. She designed their logo, their website, their marketing materials. She attended investor meetings and contributed ideas. Brandon praised her work and told everyone she was the secret weapon behind their success. Then things started to change. The company hired a professional marketing team. Suddenly Simone's designs needed to be approved by people who had never met her. Her ideas were implemented without credit. When she brought this up to Brandon, he said she was being sensitive. You're not an employee, he explained patiently, as if talking to a child. You're my wife. Your contributions are part of our shared success. Isn't that better than some job title? Simone pushed down her discomfort and agreed. After all, the company was doing well. They bought a house. Well, Brandon bought a house, though he told her it was theirs. He insisted on putting only his name on the deed for tax purposes. It's all the same thing, he said. What's mine is yours. Except it wasn't. As the company grew, Brandon grew busier. Meetings ran late. Business trips multiplied. Simone found herself alone in the big house more often than not. She tried to stay involved with the company, but Brandon began leaving her out of decisions. You don't understand the technical side, he said when she asked about a new product launch. Stick to what you know. I know marketing and design, Simone protested. That's my degree. That was years ago, babe. The industry has changed. We have professionals handling that now. Professionals like Tiffany, who Brandon hired as his executive assistant 3 years into their marriage. Tiffany was young, eager, and always available. She worked late when Brandon worked late. She traveled with him on business trips. She knew his schedule better than Simone did. When Simone expressed discomfort with how much time Brandon spent with his assistant, he accused her of being jealous and insecure. Not every man cheats just because he works with women, he said coldly. Maybe you should get a hobby instead of sitting around making up problems. So Simone tried to find hobbies. She took cooking classes, joined a book club, volunteered at a local shelter. But nothing filled the growing emptiness. She felt like a ghost in her own life, invisible except when Brandon needed her to play the role of the supportive wife at company events. She tried to talk to him about going back to work, but he dismissed the idea immediately. Why would you do that? I make plenty of money. You don't need to work. It's not about money. It's about me having my own identity, my own career. Your identity is being my wife. What's wrong with that? Everything. Simone wanted to scream. But she didn't. She swallowed her frustration and tried to be grateful. After all, they had a beautiful home, financial security, and a husband who provided well. Wasn't that enough? It wasn't. The final 3 years of their marriage were the loneliest of Simone's life. Brandon barely spoke to her except to issue instructions or criticize. The house was too messy. Dinner wasn't ready when he got home. She had gained 5 pounds. She spent too much money on groceries. She was too quiet at company parties. She was too loud at company parties. Nothing she did was right. And through it all, Tiffany was always there in the background. The perfect assistant who never made mistakes, who anticipated Brandon's needs before he voiced them, who laughed at all his jokes and made him feel important. Simone wasn't stupid. She knew what was happening long before she caught them. She saw the way Brandon's face lit up when Tiffany called. She noticed the new cologne he wore and the extra care he took with his appearance. She found the credit card receipts for hotels when Brandon claimed to be in business meetings across town. But catching them, actually seeing them together in her bed, was different. The knowledge was one thing. The evidence was another. And Brandon's reaction when she discovered them was the final, brutal truth. He hadn't apologized. He hadn't begged for forgiveness. He had simply looked annoyed that she came home early. "This is who I am now," he said, pulling on his pants while Tiffany scrambled to cover herself with the sheets. "You've known for months, Simone. Don't act surprised. I'm your wife," she had whispered. "You're a wife who contributes nothing. Tiffany actually helps me. She understands the business. She makes me better. You just exist." Those words had cut deeper than the affair itself. You just exist. Simone had left the room, gone to a hotel, and called a lawyer the next morning. Brandon didn't fight the divorce. In fact, he seemed relieved. But when his lawyer laid out the settlement, Simone finally understood how trapped she had been. The house was his. The cars were his. The bank accounts were his. The retirement funds were his. Even the dishes and furniture were his because he had bought them with his money, and Simone hadn't worked in 8 years. She had no recent job history, no income, no assets of her own. "You understand," Brandon's lawyer had said with false sympathy, "that my client was the sole earner throughout the marriage. While you may be entitled to temporary spousal support, you have no claim to the business or property." Simone's lawyer fought for 6 months of spousal support and walking away without debt. It was better than nothing, but not much. The day the divorce was finalized, Brandon had sent her a text. "Hope you learned something from this. Next time, contribute." She had learned something. Just not what he thought. She learned that depending on someone else meant being powerless. She learned that love without respect was worthless. She learned that she would never, ever allow herself to be that vulnerable again. And she learned that she was capable of far more than Brandon ever gave her credit for. The night Simone discovered the affair had started like any other evening. She had been visiting her mother in Portland for 3 days, helping her recover from minor surgery. Brandon had encouraged her to go, insisting he would be fine on his own. He had even seemed excited about having the house to himself, mentioning something about catching up on work without distractions. Simone's mother recovered faster than expected, and Simone decided to come home a day early. She texted Brandon to let him know, but he didn't respond. That wasn't unusual. He often got absorbed in work and ignored his phone for hours. She arrived home at 8 in the evening. Brandon's BMW was in the driveway, but there was another car she didn't recognize. A silver Audi with a parking sticker from Brandon's company. She felt the first flutter of unease in her stomach. The front door was unlocked. Music played softly from upstairs, not Brandon's usual taste. Something jazzy and intimate. Simone set down her overnight bag and climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The bedroom door was ajar. Later, Simone would remember this moment as the point of no return. She could have turned around, gone back downstairs, pretended she saw nothing. But she didn't. She pushed the door open. Brandon and Tiffany were in the bed Simone had picked out, on the sheets Simone had washed before leaving for Portland. They weren't just having sex. They looked comfortable, familiar, like this had happened many times before. Brandon's clothes were mixed with Tiffany's on the floor. There was wine on the nightstand, 2 glasses. "Simone!" Tiffany shrieked, grabbing the sheets. Brandon sat up, but he didn't look shocked or guilty. He looked annoyed. Irritated that his evening had been interrupted. "You said you were coming back tomorrow," he said flatly. That was his first response. Not, I'm sorry. Not, this is a mistake. Just annoyance that she had come home early. What is this? Simone's voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. It's exactly what it looks like. Brandon got out of bed, completely unconcerned about his nakedness, and started pulling on his pants. Simone, we need to talk. You're sleeping with your assistant. In our bed. See, that's the problem. You keep saying our. This is my bed. In my house. Paid for with my money. He buttoned his shirt slowly, deliberately. And Tiffany isn't just my assistant. She's been more of a partner to me than you've been in years. Simone felt like she was watching the scene from outside her body. How long? Does it matter? How long, Brandon? He sighed like she was being tedious. 2 years. Maybe more. I don't know exactly. 2 years. While Simone was cooking his dinners, attending his company events, supporting his success. 2 years of lies. Tiffany understands me, Brandon continued. She gets the business. She works as hard as I do. She contributes something. What do you contribute, Simone? I'm your wife. You're a title. That's all. You walk around this house all day doing nothing, spending my money, and acting like you're entitled to it. His voice grew harder. You know what Tiffany does? She closes deals. She brings in clients. She makes me money. What do you make me? I gave up my career for you. Brandon laughed bitterly. You gave up a job at a tiny marketing firm. You act like you sacrificed some huge career, but you were nothing special. You were a junior designer who made decent logos. That's it. Each word was a knife. You asked me to quit. You said we'd build the company together. I needed free labor to get started. You were useful then. You're not useful now. He finished dressing and looked at her with something close to pity. Look, I didn't plan for you to find out this way, but maybe it's better. We're done, Simone. I want a divorce. Tiffany had wrapped herself in the sheet and was watching the exchange nervously. Brandon, maybe we should. No, she needs to hear this. He turned back to Simone. I'm going to be generous. I'll give you 6 months to figure out your life. You can stay in the guest room until you find somewhere to go. I'll even pay for your apartment deposit. But after that, you're on your own. This is my home too, Simone whispered. No, it's not. It was never yours. Check the deed. Check the car registration. Check every bank account. Nothing is in your name, Simone. You own nothing. You are nothing without me. The words landed like physical blows. Simone stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow, Brandon said, moving toward the door. Come on, Tiffany. Let's go to your place. Tiffany scrambled to gather her clothes, avoiding Simone's eyes. As she passed, Simone caught the scent of her perfume, expensive, distinctive. She recognized it. It was the perfume Brandon had given Simone for her birthday last year. Except Simone had never worn it because she was allergic to strong scents. Now she understood. The perfume had never been for her at all. They left her standing in the bedroom, and Simone heard their footsteps on the stairs, their voices in the foyer, the front door closing. Brandon's car started and pulled away. Simone sank onto the floor, her back against the wall. She sat there for hours, watching the room grow dark around her. Her mind raced through 8 years of marriage, seeing every moment differently now. The late nights. The business trips. The way Brandon had slowly, methodically isolated her from friends and career until she had nothing of her own. You are nothing without me. Was she? She tried to inventory what she had. No job. No recent work experience. No money saved in her name. No career to return to. No assets. No power. She had given Brandon everything, and he had given her nothing in return. Not even the dignity of an apology. At midnight, Simone finally moved. She went to the guest room, grabbed a bag and packed some clothes. She called a hotel and booked a room. Then she called an attorney. When she left the house that night, she made a promise to herself. She would never be powerless again. But in that moment, sitting in a hotel room at 1 a.m, staring at the ceiling and trying not to cry, Simone had no idea how she would keep that promise. She just knew she had to. Brandon called the next morning, his voice businesslike and cold. My lawyer will be in touch. Don't make this difficult. You sign what he gives you and we can both move on with our lives. I've hired my own lawyer, Simone said quietly. Brandon laughed. With what money? Oh, that's right. You'll use my money to pay a lawyer to fight me. That's perfect. That's exactly the kind of thing you would do. I'm entitled to spousal support. You're entitled to what I decide to give you. Do you really want to drag this out? Do you really want everyone to know how you contributed nothing to this marriage? How I supported you for 8 years while you played house. You asked me to quit my job. I asked you to help temporarily. You chose to never go back to work. That's on you. His voice turned sharp. Sign the papers, Simone. Take the 6 months of support I'm offering and be grateful. Because if you fight me, I'll make sure you get nothing. He hung up. Simone's lawyer was sympathetic but realistic. Without your name on any assets, without income of your own, you have limited options. I can fight for longer spousal support, but a judge might not be sympathetic. You're young and healthy. They'll expect you to work. I'm trying to work, Simone said. But I've been out of the industry for 8 years. No one will hire me. Then we negotiate the best settlement we can and you figure out your next steps. The divorce took 6 months. 6 months of Brandon's lawyer painting Simone as a gold digger who had lived off Brandon's hard work. 6 months of depositions where she had to explain why she hadn't worked, why she hadn't saved money, why she hadn't kept her skills current. 6 months of feeling like a failure. The final settlement was brutal in its simplicity. 6 months of spousal support, barely enough to cover basic rent and expenses. No claim to the house, the cars, the business, or any assets. She could take her clothes and personal items. Everything else belonged to Brandon. The day the divorce was finalized, Simone sat in her tiny apartment, the one she could barely afford even with the temporary support, and stared at her bank account balance. She had $3,000. In 6 months the support would stop and then what? Brandon's text message came through that evening. Hope you learned something from this. Next time, contribute. Simone stared at those words for a long time. Then she opened her laptop and started researching freelance graphic design platforms. If Brandon wanted contribution, she would show him what contribution really looked like. What Brandon didn't know, what he couldn't have known because he never paid attention to anything Simone did, was that she hadn't been entirely idle during the final 3 years of their marriage. It started with a conversation at her book club. Simone had joined the group 2 years before the divorce, desperate for any social interaction that didn't involve Brandon's colleagues. The women in the book club became the closest thing she had to friends, and one evening after they finished discussing the month's novel, the conversation turned to work. I'm thinking about starting a side business, said Natalie, a freelance writer. Just something small, doing social media for local businesses. I wish I had a side business, Simone had said without thinking. I feel like I'm losing my mind just sitting at home all day. What did you do before you got married? Asked another member, Rita. Graphic design. I worked at a marketing firm. I actually loved it. So why don't you do freelance design work? Natalie had asked as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Brandon wouldn't like it. The women exchanged glances. Rita spoke carefully. Does Brandon need to know about everything you do? That conversation planted a seed. Simone went home and looked up freelance design platforms. Sites where designers could bid on projects, build portfolios, work remotely. She could do this from home during the long empty days when Brandon was at work. He would never need to know. But first she needed somewhere to work. The house felt wrong, too full of Brandon's presence, too monitored by his occasional work-from-home days. So Simone did something she had never done in her marriage. She made a decision without asking permission. She found a small shared workspace in a building downtown. Just a desk in a common area, nothing fancy, but it was hers. She paid for it with money from the household account, burying the expense in grocery bills and household supplies. Brandon never checked the actual receipts. He just glanced at the total and assumed she was spending it all on food. The workspace became Simone's refuge. She started taking on small projects. Logo designs, business cards, simple websites. The money was minimal at first, but Simone didn't care about the money. She cared about the work. About remembering who she used to be. She opened a bank account Brandon didn't know about, using her maiden name. Every payment went into that account. She never touched the money, just let it accumulate. It felt like building a life raft, one small deposit at a time. Her skills had gotten rusty during her years away from the industry, but Simone worked hard to catch up. She took free online courses in the latest design software. She studied current design trends. She forced herself to be better than she had been 8 years ago. Slowly, her client base grew. Small businesses became medium businesses. She landed a contract with a local restaurant chain to redesign their menu and branding. The project took months and paid $5,000. Simone cried when the payment hit her account. It was the first substantial money she had earned in years. Brandon never noticed. He barely spoke to her by this point in their marriage, usually coming home late and going straight to his office. On the rare occasions he asked what she had done that day, Simone said she had gone shopping or met with friends. He never questioned it. The year before their divorce, Simone took the biggest risk of her life. She registered her own design business, Simone Carter Design Studio. She used her maiden name, Carter, and listed her workspace address. She built a professional website showcasing her portfolio. She started reaching out to larger clients. And then she caught Brandon with Tiffany and everything changed. During the divorce, when Brandon's lawyer was painting Simone as someone who had done nothing for 8 years, Simone sat in silence. She could have mentioned her freelance work, but some instinct told her to wait. Let Brandon and his expensive lawyer think she was helpless. Let them believe their own story about her being useless. Because while they were focused on taking away everything Brandon had given her, they weren't paying attention to what she had built herself. The day after the divorce was finalized, Simone went to her workspace and looked at her bank account. Between her freelance earnings and careful saving, she had $40,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was hers. She had 6 months of spousal support ahead of her. 6 months when Brandon would assume she was struggling, maybe working a minimum wage job, maybe living with family. 6 months when he wouldn't be paying attention to what she was doing. Simone made a plan. She moved from the shared workspace to a small private office. Still nothing fancy, but it was entirely hers. She upgraded her computer and software. She hired a business consultant to help her develop a growth strategy. She joined professional design organizations and started networking. Then she went after clients. Big clients. Corporate clients. The kind of clients who paid real money for quality design work. Her pitch was simple: high-quality design work at competitive prices, fast turnaround, and personal attention that bigger firms couldn't provide. She emphasized her experience, her creativity, and her flexibility. The first major contract came 3 months after the divorce. A tech startup, not Brandon's thankfully, needed a complete brand identity package. Website, logo, marketing materials, social media templates. They had a tight deadline and a decent budget. Simone worked day and night for 6 weeks. She poured everything she had learned, everything she had been forced to suppress during her marriage, into that project. When she delivered the final products, the CEO called her personally. "This is exactly what we needed. Better than we imagined. Can you handle our ongoing design needs?" Absolutely. That retainer contract paid $3,000 a month. Simone added 2 more clients in month 4. Then 3 more in month 5. By month 6, when Brandon's spousal support was about to end, Simone was making more money than she had at her old marketing firm job. She bought a car, used but reliable. She moved from her cramped apartment to a nice condo. She hired an assistant. And Brandon had no idea. Why would he? He had blocked her number after the divorce. He never asked mutual acquaintances about her. He was too busy with Tiffany and his company to waste time thinking about his failed marriage. That was exactly what Simone was counting on. Because the business she was building wasn't just about making money. It was about proving something. To herself. To Brandon. To every person who had ever underestimated her. She could contribute. She could succeed. She could thrive. Without him. The 6 months following the divorce were the strangest period of Simone's life. To the outside world, to the few people who knew her through Brandon, she had disappeared into obscurity. The mutual friends they had made during the marriage quietly sided with Brandon. Invitations stopped. Phone calls went unreturned. Simone was erased from that social circle as efficiently as if she had never existed. But that erasure was exactly what she needed. Every morning, Simone woke up in her modest apartment and felt something she hadn't felt in years: purpose. She would make coffee, review her project list, and head to her office. The workspace was small but efficient. A desk, a high-end computer, 2 large monitors, and walls she had painted a calm sage green. Her first major breakthrough came in week 2 of her newly independent life. The tech startup that hired her was thrilled with her work and referred her to 3 other companies. By week 4 she had a waiting list. Simone worked 12-hour days, but they felt nothing like the exhausting, empty days of her marriage. This exhaustion came with accomplishment. Every logo she designed, every website she built, every brand she helped create was proof of her value. Not as someone's wife. Not as someone's support system. As herself. She developed a reputation for being fast, reliable, and creative. Client reviews on her profile praised her ability to understand their vision and execute perfectly. One CEO wrote, "Simone took our vague ideas and turned them into a brand identity that perfectly captures who we are. She's worth every penny and more." By month 2, Simone had to hire help. She brought on Janelle, a young designer fresh out of college who reminded Simone of herself 8 years ago. Janelle was talented, eager, and afraid of being good enough. Simone mentored her gently, sharing everything she had learned. "You're really good at this," Janelle said one day, watching Simone work on a complex logo design. "Did you always know you wanted to do design?" "I did it for years before I took a break," Simone said carefully. She never talked about Brandon or the divorce. That life was sealed off, separate from who she was becoming. "Why did you take a break?" "Because I forgot that I was good at it. I let someone convince me that other things were more important." Simone looked at Janelle seriously. "Don't ever let anyone make you smaller than you are. Not a boss, not a partner, not anyone." In month 3, Simone landed the contract that changed everything. She was scrolling through project listings on a professional platform when she saw it. A Fortune 500 company was looking for a designer to overhaul their entire digital presence. Website, mobile app, marketing materials, social media assets. It was a 6-figure contract, and they were accepting bids from design firms of all sizes. Simone's heart raced as she read the description. This was the kind of project major agencies competed for. She was just one person with one assistant. She had no business bidding on it. But she had nothing to lose. She spent 3 days crafting the perfect proposal. She researched the company exhaustively, identified their pain points, and created a detailed pitch showing exactly how she would solve their problems. She included mock-ups, timelines, and pricing that was competitive but not cheap. She emphasized her personal attention and flexibility, things a huge agency couldn't offer. Then she submitted the proposal and tried not to think about it. 2 weeks later she got a call. "Miss Carter? This is Patricia Wright from Heritage Industries. We've reviewed your proposal for our digital redesign project. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss moving forward." Simone had to sit down. Heritage Industries. She had researched them thoroughly. They were a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And they wanted to meet with her. The meeting went perfectly. The executives loved her ideas, her approach, and her timeline. They appreciated that she would be personally handling the project rather than farming it out to junior designers. At the end of the meeting, Patricia extended her hand. "Welcome aboard, Miss Carter. We're excited to work with you." The contract was for $150,000, to be paid in installments over 6 months. Simone barely made it to her car before she started crying. This was more money than she had made in her entire 8-year marriage. She called her mother, the only person who knew what she had been building. "Mama, I got it. The big contract. The one I told you about." Her mother's voice was thick with tears. "Oh baby, I'm so proud of you. I knew you could do it. I always knew." Simone worked harder than she had ever worked in her life. She brought on 2 more part-time designers to help with the Heritage Industries project while she maintained her other clients. She worked evenings and weekends. She obsessed over every detail. The result was stunning. The new website was clean, modern, and user-friendly. The mobile app was intuitive and beautiful. The marketing materials were cohesive and impactful. When she presented the final products to Heritage Industries in month 5, the room went silent. "This is extraordinary," Patricia said finally. "This is exactly what we needed. Better than anything we expected." "Thank you," Simone said simply. "We'd like to put you on retainer for ongoing design work. Would you be interested?" Would she be interested? Simone nearly laughed. Absolutely. The retainer was $20,000 a month. Combined with her other clients, Simone was now making more in a month than Brandon had paid her in spousal support for the entire 6 months. She moved out of her cramped apartment and into a spacious condo in a nice neighborhood. She bought a new car, not flashy but nice. A midnight blue Mercedes that she paid for in cash. She upgraded her office space to a full suite with room for her growing team. And through it all, Brandon had no idea. She had blocked his number so she never saw any of his messages. She avoided places where she might run into him or his colleagues. She built her new life in a completely different circle, with clients who had never heard of Brandon's company. Simone thought about him sometimes, usually late at night when she couldn't sleep. She wondered if he was happy with Tiffany, if his business was doing well, if he ever thought about her. But mostly she didn't think about him at all. She was too busy building her empire. By the end of month 6, Simone Carter Design Studio had 15 active clients, a team of 5 designers, and a reputation as one of the most innovative boutique design firms in the city. Simone had been invited to speak at 2 industry conferences. Her portfolio was featured in design magazines. Corporate recruiters were calling her weekly, trying to poach her for in-house positions at major companies. She turned them all down. She would never work for someone else again. The day Brandon's final spousal support payment hit her account, Simone looked at the money and smiled. She didn't need it anymore. She had built something bigger than anything Brandon had ever given her. She donated the entire 6 months of support to a women's shelter, specifically earmarked for job training programs. Then she got back to work. 6 months after the last spousal support payment, Brandon finally remembered that Simone existed. His lawyer contacted her lawyer with a request to verify certain items from the divorce settlement. Specifically, Brandon wanted to ensure that Simone had vacated all properties and returned all items that belonged to him. "I'm confused," Simone told her lawyer over the phone. "I haven't been in that house since the day after the divorce. I took my clothes and photos. That's it." Apparently, there's a question about the house itself. It seems Mr. Hudson is ready to sell the property, and he wants to make sure there are no legal complications. There are no complications. He can do whatever he wants with that house. But Brandon didn't stop there. A week later, Simone received a certified letter from his lawyer stating that Brandon intended to reclaim all marital property as outlined in the divorce settlement. He wanted to verify that Simone had not taken anything beyond her personal effects. "This is ridiculous," Simone said to her lawyer. "I haven't taken anything. What is this really about?" Her lawyer sighed. "Between you and me? I think Mr. Hudson is having financial difficulties. He may be liquidating assets. He probably wants to make sure he can sell the house and contents without any claims from you." Simone found that interesting. Brandon having money troubles? The tech genius who had made millions with his company? But she didn't pursue it. She had her own business to run. 2 weeks later, Brandon called her directly. She was in a meeting with a potential client when her assistant buzzed her. "Simone, there's someone on line 2 who says it's urgent. He says his name is Brandon Hudson and that you used to be married." Simone felt her stomach drop. She hadn't heard his voice in nearly a year. "Tell him I'm in a meeting and I'll call him back." But Brandon called 3 more times that afternoon. Finally, Simone picked up. "What do you want, Brandon?" "I need to come by and pick up some things from the house. I'm selling it, and I want to make sure I have everything that's mine. I haven't been in that house in a year. I don't have anything of yours. I need to verify that. My lawyer says I need to do a final inventory before the sale goes through." Simone was silent for a moment. Something felt off about this. "Why are you selling the house? That's none of your business." "Then this conversation is over." "Wait." His voice changed, became slightly less hostile. "Look, I just need to tie up loose ends. Can I come by tomorrow? I'll bring movers, we'll do a quick inventory and then we're done. You never have to see me again." That actually sounded good to Simone. Fine. 10 a.m. She hung up before he could respond. That night, Simone barely slept. She kept thinking about Brandon showing up at the house she hadn't seen in a year. The house that had been her prison. She thought about facing him again, seeing Tiffany again, reliving the humiliation of the divorce. Then she thought about her business, her condo, her car, her team, her success. And she realized something important. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. The next morning, Simone dressed carefully. Not too fancy, not too casual. She wanted to look put together but not like she was trying to impress anyone. She drove to the old house in her Mercedes, parking it prominently on the street where Brandon couldn't miss it. She arrived at 9:45 and stood outside, looking at the house with fresh eyes. It looked the same, elegant, expensive, cold. She had never loved this house. It had never felt like home. Brandon pulled up at exactly 10 a.m. in his BMW. Behind him was a large moving truck and a car carrying his lawyer. And then another car. Tiffany. Simone watched as they all climbed out. Brandon looked the same, maybe a little more tired around the eyes, but still put together in his expensive suit. Tiffany looked nervous, hovering near Brandon like she wasn't sure she should be there. "Simone," Brandon said, his voice artificially friendly. "Thanks for meeting us. You said this would be quick. It will be. We just need to verify the inventory and move everything out." "Move everything out?" Simone frowned. "I thought you were selling the house furnished." "Change of plans. I want everything. It all belongs to me anyway." Understanding dawned. This wasn't about selling the house. This was about something else. Brandon wanted to see her break down, to see her beg for the furniture and belongings she had lived with for 8 years. Simone looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. "Okay." Brandon blinked. "Okay? That's it. That's it. Take everything. I don't need any of it." His face twisted in confusion. "You don't need, Simone, this is everything. The couch, the beds, the dishes, the TV. Everything. You're okay with this?" "I'm fine with it." Tiffany whispered something to Brandon, but he waved her off. Where are you living? How are you surviving? I'm doing great, actually. Simone pulled out her keys and walked past him to unlock the front door. The movers can start whenever they're ready. For the next 2 hours, Simone watched as Brandon's movers stripped the house. They took every piece of furniture, every appliance, every decoration. Brandon followed them around, pointing out items and making comments to Tiffany about where things would go in their new place. The new condo is smaller, he said at one point, clearly wanting Simone to hear. But it's in a better location. More suitable for our lifestyle. Simone said nothing. She simply sat on the front steps, scrolling through emails on her phone and occasionally signing paperwork for Brandon's lawyer. When they reached the master bedroom, Brandon paused. This is where you found us. Remember? Simone looked up from her phone. I remember. Does it hurt? Seeing all of this go? Not particularly. Come on, Simone. You can drop the act. This has to bother you. I'm taking everything. She stood up and walked to where he stood in the bedroom doorway. Brandon, I need you to understand something. You're not taking anything that matters to me. This stuff. She gestured at the furniture. I never chose any of it. You did. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every dish. All yours. I didn't care about it when we were married, and I certainly don't care about it now. So you're just going to start over with nothing? I'm not starting over with nothing. Simone smiled. I'm continuing with everything I built myself. Brandon's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means I don't need your furniture, your house, or your money. I have my own. Oh, please. You're probably waitressing somewhere and living in some tiny apartment. Don't act like you're doing well. I'm not acting. Simone checked her watch. Are we almost done here? I have a conference call at 2. A conference call? Brandon scoffed. For what? Your book club. For my business. The words hung in the air. Brandon stared at her. What business? My design firm. Simone Carter Design Studio. Maybe you've heard of it? His face went pale. You have a design firm? I do. I've had it for a while now. It's doing very well. Tiffany had joined them in the hallway. Brandon, didn't your company just... Shut up, Tiffany, Brandon snapped. He turned back to Simone. A design firm. That's cute. I'm sure it's a little freelance thing you run from your kitchen table. Actually, I have an office. And a team of 5 designers. We specialize in corporate branding and digital design. Brandon laughed, but it sounded forced. Right. Corporate branding. Sure. You don't have to believe me. But it's true. Simone walked toward the front door. Are the movers finished? I really do need to get going. The lawyer approached with a final stack of papers. Miss Carter, if you'll just sign these final documents, we can conclude this matter. Simone scanned the papers quickly, then signed each one. There. We're done. Brandon followed her out to the front lawn. Simone, wait. This business you're talking about, is it real? Very real. How? You haven't worked in years. You had no money. How did you start a business? I had more money than you thought. And more skills than you gave me credit for. She pulled out her car keys. Goodbye, Brandon. I hope you and Tiffany are very happy together. She walked to her car, the new Mercedes, and unlocked it. Behind her, she heard Brandon's sharp intake of breath. Where did you get that car? Simone turned, still smiling. I bought it. With my own money. From my business. His face was red now. That's a $60,000 car. I know. It's lovely, isn't it? She opened the door and paused. Oh, and Brandon? Good luck with the house sale. I hope you get a good price. She drove away without looking back. In her rearview mirror, she saw Brandon standing in the driveway, staring after her, while Tiffany tugged at his arm and the movers continued loading furniture into the truck. Let him wonder, she thought. Let him spend the next week trying to figure out how she went from nothing to owning a Mercedes. Let him lose sleep over it. Because while he was wondering, Simone would be busy running the business that was about to change her life even more than it already had. Brandon called her 17 times over the next 3 days. Simone ignored every call. She was too busy preparing for a presentation with a potential client, a major national retailer looking to rebrand their entire online presence. Finally, on day 4, he showed up at her office. Simone's assistant, Janelle, buzzed her line. Simone, there's a man here demanding to see you. He says his name is Brandon Hudson and that it's urgent. Simone considered sending him away, but curiosity won. Send him in. Brandon walked into her office and stopped dead. The space was beautiful, modern, professional, and clearly expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. 3 of her designers worked at sleek desks in the open area beyond her glass-walled private office. Sample work covered one wall: logos, website designs, branding packages. The Simone Carter Design Studio logo was etched into the glass door. This is... Brandon looked around in disbelief. This is real. I told you it was real. Simone didn't stand up from her desk. What do you want, Brandon? He walked further into the office, examining everything like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. How did you afford this? I told you. I have a successful business. But how? You had no money after the divorce. You had no clients, no portfolio, no... He stopped. Wait. When did you start this? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. His voice rose and Janelle looked up from her desk outside. Brandon caught himself and lowered his voice. If you had income during our marriage, that affects the divorce settlement. You lied about having no assets. I didn't lie. I had no assets that you knew about. That's different. You hid money from me. I earned money you didn't know about. Also different. Simone leaned back in her chair. And before you get your lawyer involved, let me remind you that I earned this money through freelance work I did completely separately from you. Money that went into an account in my name only. Money that was never commingled with marital assets. Your lawyer is welcome to try to claim it, but I have excellent records showing it was my separate property. Brandon's jaw clenched. You planned this. While we were married, you were planning to leave me. No, while we were married, I was trying to remember who I used to be. The leaving part came after I found you in bed with Tiffany. Remember that? He had the grace to look away. When he turned back, his expression had shifted from anger to something else. Calculation. Look, Simone. I'm sorry about how things ended. I was cruel and I shouldn't have been. But we're both moving on now, right? You have your business, I have mine. Maybe we can help each other out. Help each other out how? I heard you landed the Heritage Industries account. That's a big contract. Simone's eyes narrowed. How do you know about that? I know people in the industry. Word gets around. He sat down in the chair across from her desk without being invited. Here's the thing. My company is bidding on a major contract right now. Tech infrastructure for a national retail chain. It's worth $10 million. We need it. Congratulations. I hope you get it. The retailer is also looking for someone to handle their digital rebranding. Complete overhaul of their online presence, mobile app, everything. I thought maybe you could bid on that part, and if you get it, you could recommend my company for the tech side. Simone was quiet for a long moment. You want me to help you get a contract? It would be mutually beneficial. You get a huge client, I get a huge client. We both win. Let me see if I understand this correctly. You divorced me, told me I contributed nothing, took everything you ever gave me, and now you want me to help your business. It's not like that. This is just professional. Business is business. Business is business, Simone repeated slowly. Tell me something, Brandon. Which retailer is this? I can't tell you that. It's confidential until the bids are in. Is it North Point Retail? Brandon's face went white. How do you know that name? Because my firm is already preparing a bid for their digital rebranding project. We've had preliminary meetings with their marketing team. They're very impressed with our Heritage Industries work. The color drained completely from Brandon's face. You're bidding against me? I'm not bidding against you. I'm bidding for a design contract. You're bidding for a tech contract. They're separate projects. But if they choose you, if they choose me, it will be because my proposal is the best one they received. Just like if they choose your company, it will be because your proposal is the best. Simone stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. Brandon stood too, but he didn't move toward the door. Simone, please. I need this contract. My company needs it. Things have been difficult lately. Difficult how? We lost some major clients. Made some bad investments. Had some unexpected expenses. He ran a hand through his hair. If we don't land this North Point contract, we're going to have to make serious cuts. Maybe even fold. Simone felt a flicker of something. Not sympathy exactly, but not pleasure in his pain either. Just distance. His problems weren't her problems anymore. I'm sorry to hear that, Brandon. But I can't help you. Can't or won't. Both. I can't risk my company's reputation by making recommendations based on anything other than merit. And I won't help you because you made it very clear when we divorced that I owed you nothing. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. You meant every word. And honestly, I'm glad you did. Because those words pushed me to build something I'm proud of. Something that's mine. She walked to her office door and opened it. Goodbye, Brandon. He stood there for another moment, then walked past her. At the door he turned back. You've changed. Yes, I have. I don't like it. Simone smiled. I don't care. After he left, she returned to her desk and sat down, her hands shaking slightly. Janelle appeared in the doorway. Are you okay? I'm fine. That was my ex-husband. He seemed upset. He just realized I'm competition. It bothers him. Simone opened her laptop. Let's get back to work on the North Point proposal. I want it to be perfect. 3 weeks later, Simone received a call from North Point Retail's chief marketing officer. Miss Carter, I'm pleased to inform you that we've chosen your firm for our digital rebranding project. Your proposal was exceptional, exactly what we were looking for. Simone felt joy bloom in her chest. Thank you so much. I'm honored and excited to work with you. We'll have the contract over to you next week. Oh, and one more thing. I wanted to let you know that we also made our decision on the tech infrastructure project. We went with a different firm than the one we were initially leaning toward. Your Heritage Industries project manager gave such a glowing recommendation of your work that we decided to look at who else she was working with. It led us to some better options than what we had been considering. After the call ended, Simone sat very still. She hadn't cost Brandon the contract. The decision-makers at North Point had made their choice based on merit. But her success with Heritage Industries had indirectly influenced their process. Brandon would see it as her fault. She knew him well enough to predict that. Part of her felt bad. Despite everything, she didn't enjoy watching him fail. But a larger part of her felt something else, vindication. She had built something real, something valuable, something that affected the industry. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't nothing. She was everything Brandon had said she could never be. And she had done it without his help, without his permission, and without his approval. The best revenge, she thought, really was living well. The news spread through the industry quickly. Simone Carter Design Studio had landed the North Point retail contract, one of the biggest digital rebranding projects of the year. Articles appeared in design publications, praising her innovative approach and rapid rise in the industry. Interview requests poured in. Simone accepted several interviews, carefully crafting her story to focus on the work rather than her personal life. But some interviewers pressed for details about how she started her firm. I had been away from design for several years, she told one journalist. Personal circumstances. But I realized I had to get back to what I loved. So I started small, took on freelance projects, built a portfolio, and grew from there. It's inspiring, the journalist said. A comeback story. What kept you going during the difficult times? Simone thought about that question carefully. I think I had something to prove. Mostly to myself. I needed to know that I could do this, that I was good enough, that I had value beyond what other people told me I had. Every project I completed was proof that I was right. The article came out with the headline, From Comeback to Triumph, Simone Carter's Design Studio Rises. It didn't mention Brandon by name, but it didn't need to. Anyone in the industry who knew them both could connect the dots. The same week the article published, news broke that Brandon's company had lost the North Point contract to a competitor. The industry gossip mill went into overdrive. People whispered about financial troubles at Hudson Tech, about investors pulling out, about employees being laid off. Simone heard the rumors but tried not to pay attention. She was too busy preparing for the North Point project, which would require months of intensive work. She hired 2 more designers and a project manager to handle the expanded workload. Then Brandon showed up at her office again. This time he didn't ask permission. He pushed past Janelle and burst into Simone's office while she was in a meeting with her team. You did this, he shouted, pointing at her. You cost me that contract. Simone's designers froze. Her project manager, Aaron, a former military man who didn't rattle easily, stood up. Sir, I need you to leave. I'm not leaving until she explains what she did. Simone held up a hand to Aaron. It's okay. Everyone, please give us the room for a moment. Her team filed out, shooting concerned looks back at her. When they were alone, Simone closed the door and turned to Brandon. I didn't do anything to you, Brandon. The hell you didn't? North Point chose some no-name tech firm over us, a company with a proven track record. The only reason that happened is because you poisoned them against us. I never spoke to North Point about your company. Not once. Then how do you explain it? Maybe your proposal wasn't as good as you thought. Maybe they found someone better. Maybe this isn't about me at all. Simone sat down at her desk, deliberately calm. Brandon, I'm sorry your company is struggling. I truly am. But you can't blame me for your business problems. I can when those problems started the moment you showed up as competition. I've been competition for a year. You just didn't notice until now. She met his eyes steadily. And even if I had influenced North Point's decision, which I didn't, why would that be wrong? You're the one who told me that business is business. That success matters more than sentiment. I'm just applying the principles you taught me. Brandon's face was red with fury. I made you. Everything you have because of me. I supported you, I gave you a comfortable life, You controlled me. You isolated me. You convinced me I was worthless. And then when I finally found the courage to leave, you took everything. Simone's voice was quiet but firm. I didn't cost you that contract, Brandon. But even if I had, you would have deserved it. You vindictive. I'm not vindictive. I'm successful. There's a difference. She stood up. Now please leave my office before I call security. Brandon stared at her, breathing hard. Then his expression shifted, became almost pleading. Simone, please. If you could just, maybe put in a good word for us with some of your clients. You have connections now. You could help. No. Just one recommendation. That's all I'm asking. The answer is no, Brandon. I won't compromise my professional reputation to fix your problems. But we used to be married. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to mean everything. You made sure it means nothing now. She walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Brandon. Don't come to my office again. He left, but not before giving her a look of pure hatred. Over the next month, the situation at Hudson Tech deteriorated rapidly. Simone heard through industry contacts that Brandon had to lay off 30% of his staff. Major clients started jumping ship. Investors were demanding explanations. Then Tiffany left him. Simone learned this from an unexpected source, Tiffany herself. She called Simone's office one afternoon asking to meet. Against her better judgment, Simone agreed. They met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. Tiffany looked tired and years older than when Simone had last seen her. Thank you for meeting me, Tiffany said, stirring her coffee nervously. I wasn't sure you would. I'm not sure why I did, Simone replied honestly. What do you want? I wanted to apologize. For what I did. For the affair. For everything. Simone studied her. Why now? Because I finally understand what you went through. Brandon and I moved in together after you left. At first it was great. He was charming and attentive and made me feel special. But then, Tiffany's voice trailed off. Then it became what you experienced. He criticized everything I did. Nothing was good enough. He needed to control everything. And when his business started failing, he blamed me. I'm sorry to hear that. I left him last week. I couldn't take it anymore. And I realized that I helped him do to me what he did to you. I was the other woman. I judged you for not being good enough, for not contributing, for not making him happy. And now I see that none of it was true. It was always him. Simone took a sip of her coffee, processing this. I appreciate the apology, Tiffany. But I need you to understand that it doesn't change what happened. You made choices. So did Brandon. So did I. We all have to live with those choices. I know. I wanted you to know that I was wrong. About everything. Okay. Simone started to gather her things. Wait, Tiffany said. Can I ask you something? How did you do it? How did you go from where you were after the divorce to this? She gestured vaguely at Simone's expensive clothes, her confidence, her success. Simone thought about that question. I stopped waiting for permission to be good enough. I stopped letting other people define my worth. And I worked harder than I've ever worked in my life. She stood up. You can do it too, Tiffany. You don't need Brandon. You never did. She left Tiffany sitting in the coffee shop and went back to her office, back to her work, back to the life she had built. That evening, as she reviewed the latest designs for North Point, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Simone Carter? The voice was male, professional. This is Robert Chin from Venture Capital Partners. We've been following your company's growth with great interest. We'd like to discuss potential investment opportunities. Simone sat up straighter. Investment in my company? Yes. We see significant potential for expansion. Would you be open to a meeting? Would she be open to a meeting? Simone almost laughed. 6 months ago, she had been taking everything she owned from Brandon's house in one small box. Now venture capitalists wanted to invest in her company. I'd be very interested, she said. Let's set something up. After the call ended, Simone stood at her office window, looking out at the city lights. She thought about Brandon and his failing company, about Tiffany rebuilding her life, about the journey that had brought her to this moment. She felt no satisfaction in Brandon's struggles. Just distance. His choices had led him here, just as her choices had led her to success. The best revenge really was living well. And Simone was just getting started. The meeting with venture capital partners changed everything. Robert Chin and his team offered to invest $5 million in Simone Carter Design Studio in exchange for 25% equity. They saw potential for national expansion, predicted that with proper funding and strategic growth, the company could become a major player in the design industry. Simone negotiated for weeks, bringing in a business attorney and financial advisor. She refused to give up more than 20% equity and insisted on maintaining majority control. The investors agreed, impressed by her savvy negotiation skills. The investment allowed Simone to move her firm into a larger office space, hire 15 more employees, and open a second location in New York. She developed a training program for young designers, remembering her own struggles to rebuild her skills. She created a mentorship initiative for women returning to the workforce after career breaks. 6 months after the investment, Simone Carter Design Studio was one of the fastest-growing design firms in the country. Major corporations competed for spots on her client list. She was invited to speak at the prestigious Design Leadership Summit, where she gave a keynote address on building a business from the ground up. It was at a smaller industry conference that she met Lawrence Winters. He was an architect, 10 years older than Simone, with kind eyes and an easy smile. They were both speaking on a panel about creative collaboration between architects and designers. During the Q&A session, Lawrence answered a question by referencing one of Simone's previous answers, building on her ideas rather than contradicting them. Afterward, they talked over coffee. "Your work with Heritage Industries was brilliant," Lawrence said. "The way you integrated the digital presence with their physical branding was seamless. Not many designers think about how their work interacts with spatial design." "Thank you. I've actually been wanting to collaborate more with architects. I think there's huge potential in combining our perspectives from the start of projects, rather than working in silos." "I completely agree. I've been saying that for years." They talked for 2 hours about design philosophy, about their approaches to work, about the challenges of running independent firms. Lawrence was divorced, had been for 5 years, and spoke about his ex-wife with a kind of respectful distance that Simone appreciated. No bitterness, no blame, just an acknowledgement that they had grown in different directions. "What about you?" Lawrence asked. "Are you seeing anyone?" "No. I've been focused on building my business. Relationships haven't been a priority." "Understandable. Though can I say something that might be too forward?" "Go ahead. I'd really like to take you to dinner. Not a business dinner. An actual date." Simone hesitated. She hadn't dated anyone since Brandon. Hadn't even thought about it. The idea of letting someone close again felt dangerous. But Lawrence was looking at her with genuine interest, no pressure, no expectation. Just an invitation. "Okay," she said. "I'd like that." Their first date was simple, dinner at a quiet restaurant followed by a walk through the city. Lawrence asked about her work, her goals, her life. He listened when she talked and didn't try to dominate the conversation. When Simone mentioned that she had gone through a difficult divorce, he nodded sympathetically but didn't press for details. "I'm sorry you went through that," he said simply. "Divorce is hard even when it's the right decision." They dated slowly, carefully. Lawrence never pushed for more than Simone was ready to give. When she explained that she wasn't ready to move fast, that she needed to maintain her independence, he understood completely. "I'm not trying to change your life," he told her on their third date. "I like your life exactly as it is. I'm just hoping to be part of it, not take it over." 6 months into their relationship, Lawrence met Simone's mother. The two of them bonded immediately over their shared love of old jazz music and their protectiveness of Simone. "He's good," Simone's mother told her later. "He respects you. He sees you. That's rare." "I know, Mama. You're not afraid of this?" "Terrified," Simone admitted, "but in a different way than before. With Brandon, I was afraid of losing myself. With Lawrence, I'm afraid of being happy and having it taken away. But I'm learning that fear doesn't have to stop me." Lawrence proposed a year into their relationship, but not in the traditional way. They were working on a joint project. A corporate campus where Simone's firm was handling all digital and visual branding while Lawrence's firm designed the physical space. One evening, reviewing plans in Simone's office, Lawrence set down his pencil and looked at her seriously. I have a question that's not about the project. Okay. What would you think about getting married? Simone blinked. That's quite a question. I know. And before you answer, I want to be clear about what I'm asking. I'm not asking you to change your life, your business, or your independence. I'm not asking you to take my name or move into my house. I'm asking if you want to build a life together while both maintaining our separate careers and identities. I'm asking if you trust me enough to be partners in all the ways that matter. Simone thought about that question for a long time. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. 3 months later, Simone said yes. They had a small wedding with close friends and family. Simone kept her name. They bought a new house together, putting both names on the deed. They maintained separate offices for their respective firms while collaborating on joint projects when it made sense. It was nothing like her marriage to Brandon. This felt like true partnership. A year after her marriage to Lawrence, Simone Carter Design Studio was valued at $30 million. The firm had expanded to 4 locations, employed over 50 people, and worked with half of the Fortune 500 companies. Simone had been featured in Business Week as one of the top entrepreneurs under 40. She had been invited to teach a master class at a prestigious design school. She stood in her corner office, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a woman with 1 box of photos and $3,000 to a successful CEO with a thriving business and a healthy relationship. Lawrence came into her office carrying 2 cups of coffee. You look contemplative. Just thinking about how much has changed. For the better? Definitely for the better. She accepted the coffee and kissed him. Thank you for being patient with me. I know I wasn't the easiest person to date. You were worth the patience. You still are. Her assistant buzzed. Simone, you have a visitor in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. His name is Brandon Hudson. Simone exchanged glances with Lawrence, who raised an eyebrow. Want me to stay? No, it's okay. I'll handle it. I'll be in my office if you need me. Lawrence squeezed her hand and left. Simone took a deep breath, then told her assistant to send Brandon up. He looked terrible. His suit was rumpled, his face haggard, his eyes red. The confident, cruel man who had taken everything from her was gone. In his place was someone broken. Thank you for seeing me, he said quietly. What do you want, Brandon? I wanted to. He stopped, started again. I heard about your success. The Business Week article. The expansion. You're everywhere. I've been working hard. I know. Everyone knows. He sat down without being invited, but Simone didn't object. My company filed for bankruptcy last month. I'm shutting down. Losing everything. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? He looked up at her. I treated you terribly. I told you that you were nothing. And now you're everything and I'm nothing. Are you really sorry? Simone thought about that question honestly. Yes, I am. I'm sorry for you, Brandon, because I remember being in that place where everything falls apart. It's awful. But I'm not sorry about my success. I earned it. I know you did. He rubbed his face. I didn't come here to ask for help. I know you wouldn't give it and I don't deserve it anyway. I needed to see you. To tell you that I was wrong about everything. I appreciate that. You were always talented. Always capable. I was threatened by that, so I made you smaller. Made you doubt yourself. Made you think you needed me when the truth was I needed you. He stood up slowly. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and I see what you've become despite me. Because of you actually, Simone said quietly. If you hadn't pushed me to my lowest point, I might never have found the strength to build this. I'm not grateful for the pain, but I'm grateful for what I learned from it. Brandon nodded. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to be, but I am. Thank you. He walked to the door, then paused. Are you happy? I am. Genuinely happy. Good. You deserve it. He opened the door, then looked back one last time. Goodbye, Simone. Goodbye, Brandon. After he left, Simone stood at her window again, watching the city below. She felt nothing but peace. No anger, no bitterness, no triumph. Just acceptance that their story was over and her story, her real story, was still being written. Her phone buzzed with a reminder about her next meeting. She finished her coffee, gathered her materials and went back to work. There was still so much to build. 1 year later, Simone stood backstage at the National Design Conference, waiting to receive the Innovator of the Year award. She wore a midnight blue dress that matched her first real act of independence, the car she had bought with her own money. Lawrence stood beside her, straightening his tie. Nervous? He asked. A little. Mostly excited. You should be. This is incredible, Simone. The award was recognition of everything she had built over the past 3 years. Simone Carter Design Studio now had 6 locations, employed over 100 people, and was valued at $50 million. She had been invited to join the boards of 3 major corporations and had started a foundation to help women rebuild their careers after divorce. But the real achievement wasn't the money or the awards. It was the fact that she had created a life that was entirely hers. A career she loved, a team she was proud of, and a relationship built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. The announcer called her name, and Simone walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She accepted the award and stepped up to the microphone. Thank you so much for this honor, she began. 3 years ago I was starting over with nothing but a laptop and a dream. Today I run a company that I'm incredibly proud of. But this award isn't just about business success. It's about something more important. The power of believing in yourself even when no one else does. She looked out at the audience, seeing hundreds of designers and entrepreneurs, all at different stages of their journeys. I spent years letting someone else define my worth. I believed I was only valuable as someone's support system, someone's wife, someone's assistant. It took losing everything to realize that I had never been nothing. I had just been silenced. Her voice grew stronger. If you're in that place right now, if someone is telling you that you're not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, please don't believe them. You are enough. You have always been enough. And when you find the courage to bet on yourself, you'll be amazed at what you can build. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Simone smiled, accepted the award, and walked off stage. Backstage, Lawrence pulled her into a hug. That was perfect. You're perfect. Stop, you'll make me cry before the reception. At the reception that followed, Simone networked with other award winners and industry leaders. She discussed potential collaborations, shared insights about scaling a design business, and offered advice to younger designers just starting out. Toward the end of the evening, a waiter approached her with a message. Excuse me, Miss Carter? There's someone who would like to speak with you. He's waiting in the lobby. Simone's first thought was Brandon, but when she reached the lobby she found someone unexpected, Brandon's former business partner, Michael. Simone, he said warmly, extending his hand. Congratulations on your award. Well deserved. Thank you. I'm surprised to see you here. I wanted to catch you before you left. I've started a new venture, and I'm looking for a design firm to help with our branding. I was hoping we could set up a meeting to discuss a potential partnership. Simone studied him carefully. Michael, you know that Brandon and I know everything, Michael interrupted gently. I know how he treated you during your marriage. I know how the divorce went down. And I know he's blamed you for his company's failure, which is completely unfair. That's actually part of why I left the partnership. I couldn't work with someone who refused to take responsibility for his own decisions. I appreciate you saying that. I mean it. Brandon made a lot of bad choices, both personal and professional. None of that was your fault. Michael pulled out a business card. My new company is in sustainable tech. We're trying to make green energy more accessible to low-income communities. It's a mission I really believe in, and I think your firm's approach to design would be perfect for our branding. Simone looked at the card. It was a good project, the kind of work she wanted to take on. Send me a proposal. I'd be happy to review it. Thank you. That's all I can ask. Michael paused. Brandon showed up at my office last week asking for help. I said no. I wanted you to know that. You don't have to explain your decisions to me. I know. But I wanted you to understand that some of us see what really happened. Some of us recognize that you earned everything you have. And some of us are rooting for you. After Michael left, Simone returned to the reception, where Lawrence was talking with a group of architects. She joined them, slipping her hand into his. Everything okay? He asked quietly. Everything's perfect. The evening wound down and Simone and Lawrence drove home together. Their house, the one they had chosen together with both names on the deed, was lit up warmly against the night sky. Inside, Simone kicked off her heels and changed into comfortable clothes. Lawrence poured them both a glass of wine, and they sat on the couch together. I'm proud of you, he said. Not just for the award, though that's incredible, but for everything you've built. The business, the foundation, this life. You did it all yourself. Not all myself. You've been a huge support. But I didn't build it for you. That's the difference. I just stood beside you while you built it. He kissed her forehead. That's what partners do. Simone leaned against him, feeling content in a way she never had during her marriage to Brandon. This felt right. Balanced. Two whole people choosing to build a life together, not one person consuming the other. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. I watched the ceremony online. So proud of my baby girl. You showed them all. Simone smiled and texted back. Thanks, Mama. Love you. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The betrayal that had shattered her world. The terrifying moment of starting over with nothing. The slow, painful process of rebuilding herself. The joy of discovering her own strength. The success that came from betting on herself. And she thought about Brandon struggling somewhere with the consequences of his choices. She felt no satisfaction in his failure but no regret either. They had both made their choices. They were both living with the results. The final thought she had before falling asleep that night was simple. The best revenge really was living well. And Simone was living very well indeed. 3 months later, Simone was in New York for a client meeting when she saw him. She was leaving a coffee shop, juggling her laptop bag and a latte, when a man in a cheap suit approached her on the street. Simone. She turned. It took her a moment to recognize him. Brandon looked nothing like the man she had married. His hair was longer, graying at the temples. His suit was off the rack, wrinkled. He had dark circles under his eyes. Brandon. Her voice was neutral. I saw on social media that you were in town. I hoped I might run into you. He shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. You look great. Really great. Thank you. I heard your company just opened its 6th location. That's amazing. We're doing well, yes. There was an awkward pause. Brandon seemed to be working up to something. Finally he said, I'm working as a consultant now. Tech startups mostly. Helping them avoid the mistakes I made. It's not what I had before, but it's honest work. That's good. I hope it goes well for you. Tiffany and I aren't together anymore. Haven't been for a while. I heard. I'm sorry. Are you? Are you really? Simone considered that question honestly. Yes, I am. I'm sorry anytime someone goes through pain, Brandon. Even you. He looked at her for a long moment. You're not the woman I married. No, I'm not. I'm better. I was going to say stronger, but yes. Better too. He took a breath. Look, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But I was wondering, I know your firm must need consultants sometimes. Tech integration, that kind of thing. I'm good at that. Always have been. If you ever need someone, would you consider? No. The word was firm but not cruel. Brandon nodded slowly as if he had expected it. I'm not trying to be vindictive, Simone continued. But I built my company separately from you. I keep it that way. It's nothing personal. It's just a boundary. I understand. He started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I should have valued you when I had the chance. You were always special. I just couldn't see it. Or maybe I could see it and it scared me. I don't know. But I'm sorry. For all of it. Simone nodded, accepting the apology without owing him anything in return. Take care of yourself, Brandon. You too, Simone. You deserve everything you have. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd of New York pedestrians. Simone stood there for a moment, holding her coffee, watching him go. She felt nothing but peace. She pulled out her phone and texted Lawrence, running into old ghosts. Reminded me how lucky I am to have you. See you tonight. His response came immediately, lucky is mutual. Love you. Simone smiled, not the polite smile she had given Brandon, but a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. Then she headed to her client meeting, walking with the confidence of someone who had built everything she had, lost everything that didn't matter, and kept everything that did. The revenge she had taken wasn't about making Brandon suffer. It was about making herself succeed. And that success was sweeter than any petty vengeance could ever be. She had won. Not by defeating him, but by becoming the best version of herself. And that was the most satisfying ending of all.